Apparently I'm live. Good evening and welcome to Live Irish. I'm Anthony Murphy of Mythical Ireland. This is episode 112. Can you believe it? It's autumn time and autumn weather is well and truly here. At the moment, the very darkest clouds have come in over Drogheda here in the Boyne Valley and it's very dark. It's very dark. You're all welcome along to Live Irish Myths. This evening's topic is, this is going to be the first of two episodes. We're dealing with the story called tochmarc Emer, which is the Wooing of Emer. We did, of course, previously several episodes dealing with tochmarc Etain. This is a different story. This is from the Ulster Cycle. I hope you enjoy yourselves. Tonight, I'm going to welcome the YouTubers first. Flower Child is the first of the commenters from Las Vegas, where it's hot, hot, hot. I love your channel, Anthony. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Flower Child. You're welcome along. Daisy Peters. Hi, Anthony Everett. I'm looking forward to this wonderful episode. I love these Irish tales. Blessings to all. August Banachty Ort Fame. Daisy, thank you. Deborah Williams says, hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Pardon me. I should slow down. Archaeoastronomy Database says, hello, Anthony and all my friends. So glad to be here. It is always a highlight of the week. And it's very nice to have you along. Anybody who's interested in astronomy is welcome in tochmarc. John Main says, Banachty, everyone from a warm San Francisco, 23 today. Hope you're all keeping safe and healthy. All good so far, John. Can't speak for everyone else, but I hope everyone is in good form and safe and well. Mandy McCurl says, hello, everyone. I hope you're all keeping well. What a pleasure to be with you on this lovely sunny evening in the Hebrides. And it is always, of course, a great pleasure, Mandy, to see you in the house. You're very welcome. Tá fáilte rát. The Full Irish GK says, Fáilte, good evening from Tala in South Dublin. Good evening to you. And that is, of course, Tala Muncher Partholone. The graves of the Partholonians. Stephen Walker says, greetings from Hotlanta. It's obviously quite warm in Atlanta today. Hotlanta. We had tropical storms here. Very unusual for San Francisco, says John. Keep them there, though. We don't want them over here. Angel Barboni Smith, with her new tattoo, is the first of the commenters tonight on Facebook. Welcome along, Angel. And thank you for showing off your wonderful art. Louise Sherrill says, hello, Fáilte Louise. Jim Conway is in the house and says, Jim Conway here. Jim, always a pleasure. Nora Gaffney O'Connor says, hello, Tua. Fáilte Anocht, Nora. Charlie Grover says, hello. Hi, Charlie. Barbara Barney says, hi, Anthony, and hi, everyone. Jiglich. Barbara Conasatatu. Sandra Boothroyd says, good evening. Trononawa. Helen Guinan is in the house. Please, if you don't mind, please prostrate yourselves in a manner befitting of royalty. Your Majesty, always a pleasure. Ralph Waldron says, Trononawa. Good evening, Ralph. Thanks for your posts on the Mythical Ireland community. Good to see you sharing stuff. Charlene McLean Cosby says, great seeing you. Well, I hope you enjoy the story as well. Steve Martinson says, summer is still in full swing here in the States. Glad to be here with you all. Be safe, be well. And of course, that is the biggest message of the series. An effort to try and make sure that everybody's safe and well. Elaine Dent Lingenfelter says, hello again, Anthony, from Texas. Elaine, going by the trend that I'm seeing from my friends in the States, I imagine that it's hot in Texas as well. Kristen Gray Taggart says, hello from a very hot Northern California. We're heading for 109 degrees today, which is an improvement over the original forecast of 112. You typed 1112, 1112. That would be hot. I believe that the hottest temperature in modern times in the States was recorded in Death Valley the other day. Temperature of 130 Fahrenheit, which is the equivalent of 54.4 Celsius, I think. You know, I mean, it'd be cooler hopping in the oven, you know. Adina Sparks is in the house, says, afternoon, Anthony, on the two. I hope all are well. All great, Adina. Lovely to see you. Tom King is watching. Fáilte Tom. Conus Tatu Macharja. Great to see you. Anne McCallum says, hello, Anthony, and the mighty Tua. You're in such high demand these days. Well done. Your talks have been wonderful. I wonder, did you see the one Rath Michael last night? I know it was a little bit difficult for people to join that because it was a Zoom one. But I hope you enjoyed the talk at Ishnok. Because of COVID restrictions, there were only about 15 people actually there in person watching it. But the online audience was quite significant. So it's great to be able to share it with you all and great to see the names coming up afterwards Helen says, good evening, with some sort of a suitable royal wave, to which we just bow and nod our heads in obeisance. Alex Casterton says, evening, Anthony and the Tua. This should be good tonight. I hope you enjoy it. This is an interesting tale. It's got nice twists and turns in it. It's interesting. And of course, it deals with the local area to an extent too. Raymond Lawson says, greetings from San Francisco. Raymond, John Main is also in San Francisco. We have a few viewers from California this evening. Apparently it's hot over there. Kimberly Halligan says, hi, Anthony and the Tua. So good to be here. Falcha, Kimberly, you're welcome along. Margaret Kiernan says, hi, everyone. Best wishes to you all. Hello, Margaret. I hope the sun is shining for you. Alwyn Roy Badziak says, hello, Anthony and Tua from Berkshire. Hello, Alwyn. Falcha. Trononoa. Vicky Wallace-Southall says, hello, my friends. I missed you. Vicky, it's a great pleasure. I think the last time we were speaking was when I did the live from Douth, and I hope Evan is with you. And if Evan is there, hello, Evan. Good evening to you. Nick Eska Casterton says, hi, Anthony and the great Tua. Really enjoyed your talk at Ishnok, Anthony. A real treat. Well, I'm glad, Nick. I'm glad. The great thing about these talks is that as I'm learning, I'm adding to them. So they're updated versions of talks I gave before. So if any of you happen to have seen the one about Dronehenge last night for the Rathmichael Historical Society, you'll have seen that that's pretty much a copy of the one I gave in Megalithomania. I was going to say Megalomania, Megalithomania last year, but updated with new information. Edina Sparks is saying hello to Nora. And Nora is saying, there's loads of people saying hello to each other, which is wonderful. Larissa Kama says, oh, what a wonderful surprise. I didn't know we'd all be here together. Warm greetings, my lovely Tua and Anthony. It's so good to be here with you all today. And likewise, Larissa, it's a great pleasure to have you in the house. And I know we normally do Mondays, but because I was giving a talk to Rathmichael, the good, lovely people at Rathmichael Historical Society in Dublin last night, I couldn't. So we're getting a kind of a bonus. So, well, I hope you consider it a bonus. Maybe not. Desiree Riley says, hello, lovely to see you, Anthony, and all the Tua. It's blisteringly hot and humid like normal in Louisiana. Yeah, it's actually a bit mild in here this evening, but like generally the weather has been poor the last couple of days. A lot of rain. You know, it's just middling, as we'd say here. Edina Sparks is saying good afternoon. Hello, Edina. Katrina Matthews Channing says, hope you're all having a lovely day. Yes, indeed, Katrina. Welcome along. Vicky is saying, we had 108 in Oregon. Ooh. Dolmac McDermott says, hi, Anthony, August on Tua. Falcha, Dolmac, welcome along. Debbie Daly says, hi, Anthony, Tua, and Your Majesty. Her Majesty is suitably impressed. Megan Walters says, hi, everyone. Hello, Megan. Lovely to see you back again. It's great to have you in the house. Kelly Jensen says, greetings from Boulder in Colorado. Hello, Kelly, and I presume it's hot there too. Susan Scott says, hello, Giagwich. ArchDB says, great talk at Ishnok. Glad that you enjoyed it. The technology is curious because the coverage isn't great there. Only one network will work, and the phone has to be positioned in a certain place. So well done to Francis Tute at Ishnok, who organised the live streaming. She's brilliant. And I want to say thanks a million to David Clark of Ishnok for inviting me down to give the talk. I had the great pleasure of the company of my co-author on Island of the Setting Sun, Richard Moore. By the way, there's a little bit of a delay on it. That's purely because of proofing issues, but it will go to print in the next day or two. I mean, it's in the printers, ready to be put onto the printer. So I hope to have copies in a couple of weeks' time. Also to say congratulations and thanks to the other speakers over the weekend who gave great talks. I hope you enjoyed them all. Mariana Dunn says, Banachty Tua and Anthony from sunny Virginia. Hello, Mariana. Lovely to see you back again. D. Baudel says, hey, Anthony. Hello, Anthony. Happy to see you. Falcha, D, welcome into the house. Catherine Hupp says, good evening from Denver, Colorado. Pray for rain on our Colorado fires. Oh, I didn't realize that was an issue. Yeah. I hope you get some much needed rain soon. Donna K. Kelly says, hello, Anthony and Tua. I've missed a few, just seeing the new library. Nice. Oh, yeah, okay. That's a few weeks ago. All right. Yeah, a bit of an upgrade. But thank you, Donna, and you're very welcome along. Barb Jordan is in the house and says, hi, everyone. Giagwich. Hello. Mark Gordon says, good day from Iowa. We had our first hurricane come through. Oh, dear. Hope everything is okay and everything's still in one piece. Kaylee During is in the house. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your second name correctly, Kaylee. Good evening, Anthony. Hope you're doing well. Your talk yesterday was amazing. I'm glad I was able to be there. I shared it while you were still live. Hugs from Holland. Thank you, Kaylee. Good to see you. And thank you indeed. Yeah, I enjoyed the 2 talks I've given over the past couple of days. But sure, you know, I'm well used to it at this stage. Susan Morris says hi from London. Giaguch Trinonawa. Susan, you're welcome along. Pia Fontaine says waves from Texas. Love your talks. Thank you, Pia. You're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Barbara Murphy, always a great pleasure to welcome another Murphy into the house. Hello, Tua from Tucson. I'm really happy to be here after missing last week. Barbara, it's a lovely pleasure to have you along. Grab a chair, make yourself comfortable, and a brew or a dram if that's your thing. Ilara Silverbreeze says, finally had a time on lunch to catch this on the West US coast. Well, yes, of course, because I think you're about 7 or 8 hours behind us, yeah. So, well, that would be midday, so, wouldn't it? Well, enjoy your lunch. Janet Moran says, hello, Anthony Giaguch. Erica Rivertree says, Bannockty, Louisville, Kentucky. Erica, Fáilte. Welcome along. Good evening to you. It's a great pleasure to have you along. Federica Guy says, hi, Anthony and Tua. Nice to be here again. Yes, indeed, Federica. And it's a great pleasure to have you along. Hope life is good in Italy and that there is some sense of normality over there. El Hendy says, hello from New Jersey. Yes, indeed. Hello, El, and Fáilte, you're welcome along. New Jersey, a place that I have been to. Specifically Princeton, but I did pass through parts of New Jersey. Well, I probably traveled the whole length of the state because I was in New York, but I was also in Philadelphia as well. So there you go. Any other comments on YouTube that I'm missing? Oh, I am missing a few. Nikita says, hello from Dowliag. Now, for those of you who've been watching previous episodes, you may know, because I think I've mentioned it at least once, Dowliag is Irish for Duleek, which is a village close to us here, a few miles out, about 5 miles out the road. And it means old stone, and it's from the first stone church in Ireland, the remnants of which are still there. The first stone church, apparently, according to tradition. Josie Weatherford says, hi, Anthony. Hello to all the two are from here in County Dublin. Good evening, Josie. Welcome along. Aaron O'Leary is in the house, is saying hello. Hi, Anthony. My grandson, Elias, is watching with me here in Boston. Hello, Aaron and Elias. Good afternoon to you from Ireland, from the Boyne Valley. Very nice to have you along. Hope you enjoy the talk. Jackie Stevenson says, hello, dear Mandy. Hope you're... Oh, she's talking to Mandy. Deborah Williams says, yay, on the book printing soon. Can't wait. Yeah, a little bit longer than I expected. We're dealing with a new printer because it was previously printed in Spain and is now being printed in England. But the printers have been very, very good about proofing issues. So I just have to, at this point, the publisher is just waiting for, and the printer is waiting for me to say, yep, press the green light, press the green button. So Island of the Setting, this is the first edition. No, sorry, this is the second edition, as you'll see from the revised and updated edition sticker on it. The 2020 edition will have new pictures here. This is all the same, and it'll have wording here saying updated with new 2020 edition. Sorry, something like 2020 edition with new preface. That's what it says, something like that. The back cover is slightly different, and the inside flaps are slightly different. They've different images and different wording on them, and a new preface, and some little updates to the text. Anyway, if you want to order your copy, a signed copy, do so now at mythicalireland.com. And as usual, before I start proper, I have to give a plug to Mythical Ireland patrons over at patreon.com/Mythical Ireland. You can become a patron and support the work of Mythical Ireland. You pledge an amount per month and you get rewards according to the amount that you pledge. So it's not a donation as such. It is actually you could consider that you're paying for a service, as it were. Just pasting in as a comment the link to pre-ordering your copy of Island of the Setting Sun. All going well at this stage. I think we're looking at the first week of September. Oh, a few more have arrived on Facebook. Nick Livingston says, big fan. Messed up with the tech again. Better late than never. Don't worry, Nick. we're only just about to start proper anyway, so it's grand. Philomena Breen says, Fáilte Anthony, wishing you all well. Hello, Philomena. Welcome and sláinte. Craig Harrell says, bookshelves look nice. Thanks indeed, Craig. There's just enough room for all the books. Nick Livingston says, just a bit up north. Okay. Dominic, loving your mirror image book. Yeah, can't mirror the selfie camera with this phone, unfortunately. Catherine Woodruff says, hello to all. Dear Tua from central Wisconsin. Hello, Catherine. Good evening to you. Martin Hughes is watching. Hello, Martin. I've all the lights on here because it's just horribly dull out, even though the sun hasn't gone down yet. Anyway, round we go to talk about or to read tonight's tale, which I hope you enjoy. As I said earlier, it is from the Ulster Cycle of Tales. So the Ulster Cycle of Tales is that which you would say is most prominently associated with Cúchulainn and the Ulstermen and the Táimbo Cúilge, etc., etc. Jules Cousins is in the house, says, hello, dear Tua Fáilte. Jules. Who else am I missing? No, we're all up to date. So I'm going to split this into two parts. First part tonight and next part, well, whenever, probably next Monday. I know, collective boos coming from the crowd. If I could just find where I did mark it at. Here we go. Here we go. You know what? I might just put a little marker in there. One of those little stickies. I have a little book of stickies here. And I can just put in a little sticky onto the page as a little sort of reminder that this is where the story starts. But I won't leave it in there because apparently the sticky stuff can do damage to the books over time. So tonight I'm reading from Ancient Irish Tales, edited by Tom P. Cross and Clark Harris Slover. I know some of you have this book because I saw some of you have acquired it since the series began in March. We saw several people sharing. Okay, what are we on? 17 minutes. I should have taken a note of that. And there's Coda Barkin. He's getting excited about the female dog, probably. She's kept in a separate room because if she wasn't, he would just pester her from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. According to the most ancient tradition, Cúchulainn, it seems, was unmarried, but stories of tochmarc, or wooings, were popular in early Irish literature. And we are not surprised to find that Iarlaithon, the greatest of all the Ulster heroes, though still a boy, was supplied with a wife. The Wooing of Emer exists in several versions, the oldest of which was composed as early as the 8th century. The wandering and incoherent character of the narrative is probably due in large part to the fact that the author has added to the simple tale of Cúchulainn's wooing numerous themes derived from older sagas. And it seems I'm going to be outbarked by the dog. Notably, the account of how Cúchulainn went to learn feats of arms from the Amazonian Scáthach. Cúchulainn's dialogue with Emer is couched in a veiled and highly poetical language which was comprehensible only to the initiated and hence means little when rendered into modern English. And I should say at this point that actually I believe the earliest version of the story is in Laura Mahira, the Book of the Dun Cow. And it's probably only a fragment. I know the tochmarc Etain is in there. So this is Best and Bergen's. It's not a translation. It is all in the Irish. I would say the reason Coda is getting worked up is because he's probably being taken for a walk. He gets very excited. Sorry, I'm just trying to find Tochmarc Emer, page 307. So I suppose it probably wouldn't do any harm just to read a small amount of it. I mean, a sentence or two in the early Irish. Is it Middle Irish? Laura Mahira. Incipit Tochmarc Emer. And I'm not sure if the whole tale is complete in this. Looks like it might be. I'm not sure. So please forgive me. No, it isn't. There are sections missing, I think. Anyway, we'll read a sentence or two in the Irish and then we'll start in the English translation. Bi ri aura arigde in naun macha fecht nail je chonchobar mac fachtna. Boi mar de avru in a fly ha ultu. It's BAI father, which I think is the early Irish version of B, as in V, past tense. They were B sheed agus sauni agus coin chomrak. By mess agus closh agus more horrid. By schmacht agus recht agus deg flohius fria revis la holtu. By more Dordan agus derachas agus dimud isind rihig inawan. That's quite enough of that before it gets too embarrassing. There lived once upon a time, as all of the great fairy tales beginning, the Wooing of Emer. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the hound is being taken for a walk, hence his excitement. That's very good. Rowan Grove is slipping in late. We have just begun. So you're not missing anything. Well, you missed all the fun part, which is everybody getting said hello to. There lived once upon a time a great and famous king in Awan Macha, whose name was Conchobar, son of Fachtna Fahak. In his reign, there was much store of good things enjoyed by the men of Ulster. And immediately we're here into the theme of kingship and abundance. So the king must have been blessed indeed if his reign was abundant. And of course, if his reign wasn't abundant, as we have seen in lots of episodes, and you can see exemplified by the bog bodies in the National Museum of Ireland, that if your reign was failing, then, the king could be not just dethroned. Helen Guinan would take particular interest in this. I don't think she would like such circumstances, but the king could be killed, basically. Peace there was, and quiet, and pleasant greeting. There were fruits and fatness, and harvest of the sea. There was power and law and good lordship during his time among the men of Erin. In the king's house at Awan was great state and rank and plenty. So everything seems to have been just, as we say, hunky-dory. Excuse me. I thought I was going to sneeze. Oh, yeah. I definitely was going to sneeze. Of this form was that house, the red branch of Conchobar, namely, after the likeness of the tochmarc of Tara. And you'll have heard me speaking about that, not least in the episode that we did about the Dinchanicus of Tara. I think we did a couple of episodes, didn't we? We did metrical Dinchanicus and we did prose Dinchanicus about Tara, if I remember rightly. Tochmarc is the banqueting hall, which in reality archaeologists think was actually originally a late Neolithic henge. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Nora. 9 compartments. Well, I haven't sneezed all day long until I sat down to do live Irish Myths. 9 compartments were in it, from the fire to the wall. 30 feet was the height of each bronze partition in the house. Carvings of red yew therein. A wooden floor beneath, and a roofing of tiles above. Woof for a sneeze. The compartment of Conchobar was in the front of the house, with a ceiling of silver with pillars of bronze. Their headpieces glittered with gold and were set with carbuncles, so that day and night were equally light therein. I think that's fascinating. There was a gong of silver above the king, hung from the roof tree of the royal house. And even that's interesting, that there's a word that translates as roof tree. No, I'm not allergic to you, Nora. Don't worry, don't worry. It's entirely, I do have sensitivity to dust, and I also have a touch of hay fever. Just between us, right? Just strictly, just nobody else is to hear this. But before today's episode, I dusted the bookshelves and I vacuumed. I did a bit of cleaning in here, but that's not to go any further. There was a gong. Whenever Conchobar struck the gong with his royal rod, all the men of Ulster were silent. The 12 cubicles of the 12 chariot chiefs were round about the king's compartment. And immediately here, aren't we seeing some sort of cosmology inherent in the design of the place? And for cosmology in the design of Tara and Ishnok, etc., see the wonderful book Celtic Heritage by Rees and Rees, which I think was originally published in the 60s or 70s. It is up there behind me on the shelves. You know that the king is at the center and there are 12 compartments around him. Sounds a bit like the sun and the zodiac, doesn't it? All the valiant warriors of the men of Ulster found space in that king's house at the time of drinking, and yet no man of them would crowd the other. So this is definitely not like the chamber of Sheed and Broga. There's the most wonderful light, sunlight, yellow light lighting up the belly of the dark clouds out there. Splendid, lavish, and beautiful were the valiant warriors of the men of Ulster in that house. In it were held great and numerous gatherings of every kind, and wonderful pastimes, games and music and singing there, heroes performing their feats, poets singing, harpers and players on the timpan striking up their sounds. That's a funny one. I looked this up before. Timpan sounds a lot like timpani, as in the kettle drum, but it's not a drum at all. A timpan, I think, is a form of lute. And so we're even back to here, reminiscing about discussions we had previously in relation to the gatherings that must have taken place at the Éanach sites, not least of the one I keep talking about lately, Éanach in Broga or Éanach Engasa at Newgrange at the Brunabonia site. So, the house of Conchobar, the king at Owen-Macha in Armagh, which was the centre of political power in Ulster in former times, seems also to have been a place where great celebrations were held. So I'll just read that again and just think about this in terms of Éanach Talchan at Teltown, Éanach Carmon, Éanach Crochu in Rathcrohan, and Éanach in Broga. In it were held great and numerous gatherings of every kind, and wonderful pastimes, games and music and singing there, heroes performing their feats, poets singing, harpers and players on the timpan striking up their sounds. All sorts of wonderful things. Now, once the men of Ulster were in Owen-Macha with Conchobar, drinking from the beer vat known as the Iron Chasm. Megan says these stories must have been like blockbuster movies to the regular folk who never saw such splendour. And of course, you can imagine that the Shanachie and the Philly, the poets and the storytellers they were very, very serious about their task. They would be considered professional, in today's world, and everything, absolutely everything, recited from heart. No reading of any kind. 100 fillings of beverage went into it every morning. Such was the drinking of the Iron Chasm, which at one sitting would satisfy all the men of Ulster. What about the women? The chariot chiefs of Ulster were performing on ropes stretched across from door to door in the house at Owen-Macha. Sounds like they're doing some sort of tightrope walking. 15 feet and 9 score was the size of that house. So a score is 20, 9 score is 180 and 15, so 195 feet. The chariot chiefs were performing 3 feats: the spear feat, the apple feat, and the sword edge feat, F-E-A-T, of course. The chariot chiefs who performed these feats were these: Conall the victorious, son of Amergin. And I should point out that, just in case there's any confusion, Janet says typical, no consideration for the women. Yeah, they don't seem to have occupied much of a role in some of the tales, except for where they're being bandied around as rewards for the men. I should point out at this point that the Amergin of the Ulster Cycle, well, that's how it's pronounced colloquially here, Janet. Women. That Amergin of the Ulster Cycle of Tales is the poet Amergin, who is not the same as Amergin Glungyal, who was the spiritual figurehead of the Milesians when they invaded to take Ireland for the two-headed. And I'm just going to get distracted here looking out this window. Oh, wow. Oh, man. I wish I could show you that. Everything's connected. Unfortunately, I can't really move the camera. Anyway, just imagine it. Sorry. The chariot chiefs who performed these feats were these: Conall the victorious, son of Amergin; Fergus, son of Roig the overbold; Lera the triumphant, son of Conrad; Calchar, son of Uhechar; Dovtach, son of Loy; Cúchulainn, son of Sualtam; Scale, son of Barnine, from whom the pass of Barnine is named, the warder of Awenmacha. From him is the saying, a story of Scales, for he was a mighty storyteller. And of course, the Irish for story is Scale, or Scaly Bug. Cúchulainn surpassed them all at those feats for quickness and deftness. So in other words, Cúchulainn was the best of all the warriors. The women of Ulster loved Cúchulainn greatly for his dexterity in the feats, for the nimbleness of his leap, for the excellence of his wisdom, for the sweetness of his speech, for the beauty of his face, for the loveliness of his look. For in his kingly eyes were 7 pupils, 4 of them in his one eye and 3 of them in the other. He had 7 fingers on either hand, and 7 toes on either of his 2 feet. Many were his gifts, a little bit like his spiritual father, Lugh, Cúchulainn's mother, Dectana. We mentioned in the stories about incest. That Dectana was visited by Lugh in a dream at Newgrange, and he told her that she was going to have a child and that she should call the child Setanta, and Setanta would later be Cúchulainn. Many were his gifts, and Lugh, his father, is Lugh Samaldonach, Lugh the many-gifted. First, his gift of prudence, until his warrior's flame appeared. The gift of feats, the gift of a boanfach, which is a game like drafts, a little bit, well, not perhaps so much like ficial, which is the Irish version of chess. The gift of chess playing, the gift of calculating, the gift of soothsaying, the gift of discernment, the gift of beauty. But Cúchulainn had 3 defects, and this is a little bit like Achilles, isn't it? You know, Achilles had, one defect, which was in his heel. Cúchulainn had 3 defects: that he was too young, for his beard had not grown, and all the more would unknown youths deride him; that he was too daring, and that he was too beautiful. Laura Puente is in the house. Hello, Laura. Fáilte. Don't worry about this idea of being late. A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. The men of Ulster took counsel about Cúchulainn, for their women and maidens loved him greatly. For Cúchulainn had no wife at that time. This was their counsel, that they should seek out a maiden whom Cúchulainn might choose to woo. For they were sure that a man who had a wife to attend to him would be less likely to spoil their daughters and accept the love of their women. Method behind their madness. And besides, they were troubled and afraid that Cúchulainn would perish early. So that for that reason they wished to give him a wife, that he might have an heir, knowing that his rebirth would be of himself. Wow, even that's fascinating, isn't it? Very interesting. Then Conchobar sent out 9 men into each province of Erin to seek a wife for Cúchulainn, to see if in any stronghold or in any chief place in Erin they could find the daughter of a king, or of a chief, or of a hospitaller whom it might please Cúchulainn to woo. Connie Reader is here as well. Hello, Fáilte. All the messengers returned that day a year later, and had not found a maiden whom Cúchulainn chose to woo. Thereupon Cúchulainn himself went to woo a maiden that he knew in Luglochta Logo, which means in English the gardens of Lugh, namely Emer, the daughter of Forgal the Wily. Cúchulainn himself and his charioteer Leag, son of Riangavar, went in his chariot. Oh, I should have been out with the camera, but we're doing better things. Not that there's better things than photographing a sunset, but this is the next best thing. That was the one chariot which the host of the horses of the chariots of Ulster could not follow, on account of the swiftness and speed of the chariot and of the chariot chief who sat in it. Then Cúchulainn found the maiden on her playing field, with her foster sisters around her, daughters of the landowners that lived around the stronghold of Forgal. They were learning needlework. By the way, the Gardens of Lugh are assumed to be at Lusk in County Dublin. And what's fascinating about that is, speaking of Setanta's supernatural conception and this dream vision that Dectana experienced when Lugh visited her at Newgrange. If you follow the winter solstice alignment from Newgrange, in other words, if you were to be able to sort of fly out through the window of Newgrange towards the sunrise, you would pass over the Fornox complex, but eventually you would come to Lusk. So it is pointed out, as it were, even though neither is visible from the other. Newgrange points to Lusk, and they're on that solstice axis. They were learning needlework and fine handiwork from Emer. Of all the maidens of Erin, she was the one maiden whom he deigned to address and to woo. For she had the 6 gifts: the gift of beauty, the gift of voice, the gift of sweet speech, the gift of needlework, the gifts of wisdom and chastity. Cúchulainn had said that no maiden should go with him, but she who was his equal in age and form and race, in skill and deftness, who was the best handiworker of the maidens of Erin, for that none but such as she was a fitting wife for him. Kelly Minich is in the house as well. Fáilte Kelly. Now, as Emer was the one maiden who fulfilled all these conditions, Cúchulainn went to woo her above all. It was in his festal array that Cúchulainn went forth that day to address Emer and to show his beauty to her. As the maidens were sitting on the bench of gathering at the stronghold, they heard coming towards them the clatter of horses' hoofs, with the creaking of the chariot, the cracking of straps, the grating of wheels, the rush of the hero, and the clanking of weapons. "Let one of you see," said Emer, "what it is that is coming towards us." Nora Gaffney O'Connor says, "It's getting serious now. She can sew." "Truly I see," said Féal, daughter of Forgal, "2 steeds alike in size, beauty, fierceness, and speed, bounding side by side. Spirited they are and powerful, pricking their ears, their manes long and curling, and with curling tails. At the right side of the pole of the chariot is the grey horse, broad in the haunches, fierce, swift, wild, thundering he comes along, taking small bounds with head erect and chest expanded, Desiree, she is so cool. That's nearly as bad as one of my jokes. Oh, that's terrible. Beneath his 4 hard hoofs, the firm and solid turf seems aflame. A flock of swift birds follows, but as he takes his course along the road, a flash of breath darts from him. A blast of ruddy, flaming sparks is poured from his curved jaws. The other horse is jet black, his head firmly knit, his feet broad-hoofed and slender. Long and curly are his mane and tail. Down his broad forehead hangs heavy curls of hair. Spirited and fiery, he fiercely gallops along, stamping firmly on the ground. Beautifully he sweeps along as having outstripped the horses of the land. He bounds over the smooth dry sward, following the levels of the mid-glen where no obstacle obstructs his pace. Oh, the Woodsies are in the house on YouTube. Good evening to you. It is indeed amber to the west. Some view out there over the last 10 or 15 minutes. I see a chariot of fine wood with wicker work, moving on wheels of white bronze. A pole of white silver with a mounting of white bronze. Its frame very high of creaking copper, rounded and firm. A strong curved yoke of gold, 2 firm plaited yellow reins, the shafts hard and straight as sword blades. Within the chariot, a dark, sad man, comeliest of the men of Erin. In the mythology of India, the twin horses represent the sun and moon. That's very interesting, Jim. Around him, a beautiful crimson 5-folded tunic, fastened at its opening on his white breast with a brooch of inlaid gold, against which it heaves, beating in full strokes. Hello, Liam. Liam Smith is in the house. Been a while. Hope you're all well. All in good form, Liam. Fáilte, tá fáilte rot. A shirt with a white hood, interwoven red with flaming gold. 7 red dragon gems on the ground of either of his eyes, whatever that means. 2 blue-white, blood-red cheeks that breathe forth sparks and flashes of fire. A ray of love burns in his look. It's funny, it just says, within the chariot, a dark, sad man, comeliest of the men of Erin. It doesn't really specify, Megan, what it means in terms of the darkness, what it refers to, the complexion or the demeanour. Methinks a shower of pearls has fallen into his mouth, as black as the side of a charred beam each of his eyebrows. On his 2 thighs rests a golden hilted sword, and fastened to the copper frame of the chariot is a blood-red spear with a sharp, mettlesome blade on a shaft of wood well fitted to the hand. Over his shoulders, a crimson shield with a rim of silver, chased with figures of golden animals. Judy McQueen says, hello, fáilte, Judy. He leaps the hero's salmon leap into the air, and does many like swift feats. This is the description of the chariot chief of the single chariot. Before him in that chariot there is a charioteer, a very slender, tall, much freckled man, definitely must be Irish. On his head a very curly, bright red hair, yes, definitely Irish, held by a fillet of bronze upon his brow, which prevents the hair from falling over his face. On both sides of his head, patines of gold confine the hair. A shoulder mantle about him, with sleeves opening at the 2 elbows. And in his hand a goad, G-O-A-D, of red gold with which he guides the horses. Meanwhile, Cúchulainn had come to the place where the maidens were. He wished a blessing to them. Emer lifted up her lovely face and recognized Cúchulainn, and she said, "May God make smooth the path before you. And you," he said, "may you be safe from every harm." Typical Irish people blessing, introducing each other with a blessing. Whence comest thou? She said. Where do you come from, basically? Where are you from? I never saw you here before. Do you come here often? They're chatting each other up. From Intide Alma, he replied. Where did you sleep? Said she. We slept, he said, in the house of the man who tends the cattle on the plain of Tethra. What was your food there? She asked. She doesn't half make inquiries, does she? The ruin of a chariot was cooked for us there, he replied. Strange thing to be eating. Which way didst thou come? Between the two mountains of the wood, he said. Which way didst thou take after that? Pardon me for the archaic English. That is not hard to tell, he said. From the cover of the sea, over the great secret of the Tuatha Danann, and the foam of the two steeds of Owen Macha, over the Morrigue's garden and the great sow's back, over the glen of the great dam, between the god and his prophet, over the marrow of the woman Fidelum, between the boar and his dam, over the washing place of the horses of Day, probably pronounced, between the king of Anna and his servant, to Munchuile of the four corners of the world, over great crime and the remnants of the great feast, between the vat and the little vat, to the gardens of Lugh, to the daughters of Tethra's nephew Forgall, the king of the Fomorians. And what, O maiden, is the account of thee? Said Cúchulainn. Now, I'm not sure if this is the version where there is an explanation of his route. Sounds like, it's all in metaphor, but there is an explanation for it, and I'm not sure if it's in this version. It might be in Lady Gregory's version. We might have to look that up, because he actually later explains exactly his route and what each of those poetic kennings means. Truly, that is not hard to tell, said the maiden. Tara of the women. What she's basically saying is, I am a Tara of the women, whitest of maidens, the paragon of chastity, a prohibition that is not taken, a watcher that yet sees no one. A modest woman is a dragon which none comes near. The daughter of a king is a flame of hospitality, a road that cannot be entered. I have champions that follow me to guard me from whoever would carry me off against their will, without their and Forgall's knowledge of my act. Who are the champions that follow thee, O maiden? Said Cúchulainn. Truly, it is not hard to tell, not difficult that, said Emer. Two called Louis, two Luaths, Luath and Loch Goivle, son of Tethra, Treath and Trescath, Brian and Bolor, Bas, son of Aunach, 8 called Cunla and Cun, son of Forgall. Every man of them has the strength of 100 and the feats of 9. Hard it were, too, to tell the many powers of Forgall himself. He is stronger than any labourer, more learned than any druid, more acute than any poet. It will be more than all your games to fight against Forgall himself. For many powers of his have been recounted of manly deeds. Why dost thou not reckon me, O maiden, with these strong men? Said Cúchulainn. What he's basically saying is feeling a little bit insecure. His male ego is playing up a little bit, and he's saying, well, why don't you count me among these great men? If thy deeds have been recounted, why should I not reckon thee among them? Truly I swear, O maiden, said Cúchulainn, that I shall make my deeds to be recounted among the glories of the strength of heroes. What then is thy strength? Said Emer. That is quickly told, said he. When my strength in fight is weakest, I fight off 20. A third part of my strength is sufficient for 30. Alone, I make combat against 40. Under my protection, 100 are secure. From dread of me, Warriors avoid fords and battlefields. And of course, this is because of the often mentioned in live Irish myths ability of Cúchulainn to fight in ford water and often to kill his enemy in ford water. Excuse me. Hosts and multitudes and many armed men flee before the terror of my face. Those are goodly fights for a tender boy, said the maiden, but thou hast not yet reached the strength of chariot chiefs. Truly, O maiden, said he, well have I been brought up by my dear foster father, Cúchulainn. Not as a churl strives to bring up his children, between flag and kneading trough, between fire and wall, nor on the floor of a single larder have I been brought up by Cúchulainn, but among chariot chiefs and champions, among jesters and druids, among poets and learned men, among the nobles and landlords of Ulster have I been reared, so that I have all their manners and gifts. Who then were they who brought thee up in all those deeds of which thou dost boast, said Emer. That truly is easily told. Fair-speeched Shencha has taught me, and Shencha sounds like Shanchas, sounds like a root word meaning old, like a tradition. Shencha has taught me, so that I am strong, wise, swift, deft. He's name dropping now. He's very humble, yeah. I am prudent in judgment. My memory is good. I'm a stable leader. No, he doesn't say that. Before wise men, I make answer to many. I give heed to their arguments. I direct the judgments of all the men of Ulster, and through the training of Shencha, my decisions, I apologize. My decisions are unalterable. The long journey home from Ishnok on Sunday night is catching up on me. Bly, B-L-A-I, the Lord of Lands, on account of his racial kingship, took me to himself, so that I got my due with him. I invite the men of Cúchulainn's province with their king. I entertain them for the space of a week. I settle their gifts and their spoils. I aid them in their honours and their fines. Fergus has so fostered me that I slay mighty warriors through the strength of valour. I am fierce in might and in prowess, so that I am able to guard the borders of the land against foreign foes. Gillian Gogarty's in the house. Falcha, Gillian, hello. I am a shelter for every poor man. I am a rampart of fight for every wealthy man. I give comfort to him who is wretched. I deal out mischief to him who is strong. All this through the fosterage of Fergus. He's beginning to sound a little bit like our friend from the Bible, isn't he? Amergin the poet, to his knee I came. And this is interesting because Amergin, the poet of the Milesians, was Amergin Brightknee, Amergin Glúingeal. And this is the other Amergin, the poet of the Uli, the poet of the Ulstermen. To his knee I came. Therefore I am able to praise a king for the possession of any excellency. Therefore I can stand up to any man in valour, in prowess, in wisdom, in splendour, in cleverness, in justice, in boldness. I am a match for any chariot chief. I yield thanks to none, save Cúchulainn, the battle victorious. Finchoim has reared me, so that Conall the victorious is my foster brother. For the sake of Dechtere, Cavad of the gentle face has taught me, that's Cafa, I think it's pronounced Cafa the druid, Cathbad, of the gentle face has taught me, so that I am an adept in the arts of the gods of druidism and learned in the excellencies of knowledge. All the men of Ulster have taken part in my bringing up, alike charioteers and chariot chiefs, kings and chief poets, so that I am the darling of the host and multitude, so that I fight for the honour of them all alike. Honourably was I called into being by Lugh, son of Con mac Ethlin, when Dechtere went to the house of the mighty one of the brew. And of course, that's Sheed and Broga, that's Newgrange. And thou, O maiden, said Cúchulainn, how hast thou been reared in the gardens of Lugh? It is not hard to relate that to thee, truly, answered the maiden. I was brought up, said she, in ancient virtues, in lawful behaviour, in the keeping of chastity, in rank equal to a queen, in stateliness of form, so that to me is attributed every noble grace of demeanour among the hosts of Erin's women. This is like an Iron Age version of Tinder, really, isn't it? They're listing their attributes in the hope that they get enough matches to go on a date. Good indeed. Swipe, 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 swipe. So is it swipe right or left? I've never been on Tinder, obviously, but I've heard this about swiping. Anyway, I don't think there's any swiping going on here. I think they're quite smitten with each other. They're getting into sort of deep boasting here. Good indeed are those virtues, said Cúchulainn. Why then should it not be fitting for us both to become one? See what I mean? Straight in there with the big talk now. For I have not hitherto found a maiden capable of holding converse with me at a meeting in this wise. One more question, said the maiden. Hast thou a wife already? A very important question, especially in medieval mythology, where we have seen that having a wife already is not apparently a barrier to acquiring a concubine. But can you so? Thanks, Megan. Not so, said Cúchulainn. Said the maiden, I may not marry before my sister is married, for she is older than I, namely Fial, daughter of Forgall, whom thou seest with me here. She is excellent in handiwork. LND says, you have perhaps said the phrase an Iron Age version of Tinder for the first time on earth. Emer, I have been trained to sit down, shut up, and make babies, and so, Cúchulainn, you are the most perfect woman ever. There is definitely a sexism inherent in these things, I know. Christina Zaba says, this is making me laugh. Brilliant, Anthony. Well, we're trying to entertain. I believe that the original storytellers would have entertained as well. It is not she, truly, with whom I have fallen in love, said Cúchulainn. Nor have I ever accepted a woman who has known a man before me. And I have been told that yon girl was once Cailbre Noffers. While they were thus conversing, Cúchulainn saw the breasts of the maiden over the bosom of her smock. And he said, fair is this plain, the plain of the noble yoke. Then the maiden spoke these words, no one comes to this plain who does not slay as many as 100 on every ford, from the ford of Skenmen at Olbine to Banchoing Arket, where the swift Bray breaks over the brow of Fidel. Fair is this plain, the plain of the noble yoke, said Cúchulainn. No one comes to this plain, she says, who has not achieved the feat of leaping over 3 walls and slaying 3 times 9 men at one blow, one of each of my brothers being in each group of 9, and yet preserve the brother in the midst of each 9 of them alive, and then, accompanied by them and my foster sister, bring out of Forgall stronghold my weight in gold. Fair is this plain, the plain of the noble yoke, said Cúchulainn. None comes to this plain, said she, who does not go without sleep, from summer's end to the beginning of spring, from the beginning of spring to May Day, and again from May Day to the beginning of winter. Sounds like some version of the quarter days, doesn't it? The marking out of the seasons. Even as thou hast commanded, so shall all by me be done, said Cúchulainn. And by me thy offer is accepted, it is taken, it is granted, said Emer. Yet one question more. What is thy account of thyself, said she. Oh my God, she's not inviting him to boast more, is she? Surely not. I am the nephew of the man that disappears in another in the wood of Bob, said she. Said he, sorry. Sorry, I've lost my place. "And thy name," she said. "I am the hero of the plague that befalls dogs," said he. After those notable words, Cúchulainn went from thence, and they did not hold any further converse on that day. I'd say they were tired listening to each other. While Cúchulainn was driving across Breg, or Bray, the plain in which the great monuments of Brunabony are located, Laeg, his charioteer, asked him, "Now," said he, "the words that thou and the maiden Emer spoke, what didst thou mean by them? Do you not know," I'm going to try and translate this into modern English, answered Cúchulainn, "that I am wooing Emer, and it is for this reason that we disguised our words, lest the girls should understand that I am wooing her. For if Forgall knew it, we should not meet with his consent." Cúchulainn then repeated the conversation from the beginning to his charioteer, explaining it to him to beguile the length of their way. They slept that night in unmarried. Then the daughters of the landowners told their parents of the youth who had come in his splendid chariot, and of the conversation held between him and Emer, that they did not know what they had said to one another, and that he had turned from them across the plain of Bray northward. The landowners related all this to Forgall the Wily, and told him that the girl had spoken to Cúchulainn. "It is true," said Forgall the Wily. "The madman from Macha has been here to converse with Emer, and the girl has fallen in love with him." That is why they talked one to another. "But it shall avail them nothing. I shall hinder them," he said. Thereupon Forgall the Wily went to Macha disguised in the garb of a foreigner, as if it were an embassy from the king of the Gauls that had come to confer with Conchobar, with an offering to him of golden treasures and wine of Gaul and all sorts of good things besides. In number they were 3. Great welcome was made to him. When on the 3rd day he had sent away his men, Cúchulainn and Conall and other chariot chiefs of Ulster were praised before him. He said that it was true that the chariot chiefs performed marvellously, but that were Cúchulainn to go to Donal the soldierly in Alba, Scotland, his skill would be more wonderful still, and that if he went to Scáthach to learn soldierly feats, he would excel the warriors of all Europe. But the reason for which he proposed this to Cúchulainn was that he might never return again. For he thought that if Cúchulainn became Scáthach's friend, he would come to his death thereby, through the wildness and fierceness of that warrior. Cúchulainn consented to go, and Forgall bound himself to give Cúchulainn whatever he desired, if he should go within a certain time. Forgall went home, and the warriors arose in the morning and set themselves to do as they had vowed. Liam Smith says, "Is that Sliabh Bra?" Yes, Sliabh Bra it's related to the name of my Bra or my Bray. It's the same derivation. So they started. Cúchulainn and Lera the triumphant, and Conchobar and Conall the victorious, some say, went with them. But Cúchulainn went first across my Bray to visit the maiden. He talked to Emer before going into the ship, and the maiden told him that it had been Forgall who in Macha had desired him to go and learn soldierly feats, in order that they two might not meet. And she bade him be on his guard wherever he went, lest Forgall should destroy him. Either of them promised the other to keep their chastity until they should meet again, unless either of them died meanwhile. They bade each other farewell, and he turned towards Alba. And that ends part 1 of the tale, Tochmarc, Emer, the Wooing of Emer. But before we finish, I am going to quickly check Lady Gregory's translation, just to see if the explanation is given. He said he explained it to Laeg, but they don't actually give the explanation. And I'm pretty sure it's given. We're just not sure where it's given. Lady Gregory is not jumping out at me. Where are you? There you are. Let's have a look here now. We're looking for the Wooing of Emer. It is in this, isn't it? Well, maybe it's not. Forgive me if it isn't. I'm sure it was. Somebody help me here. Whose birthday is it today? Patter. Who's Patter? Oh, sorry. Patter O'Chulla Og, who's 12 tomorrow. He's watched many an episode during the vid with me, but is currently stuck down with some unknown nut allergy. Oh, very sorry to hear that. A very happy birthday to Patter from all of us on Live Irish Myths. Will I sing? You don't want that. It's better if we can all sing together so you can drown out my awfulness. No, it's not. Give me one moment. It might be Kinsella's time, maybe? It's Courtship of Emer. Here we go. It might be Kinsella's translation of the time. Let's have a quick look here. Maybe I'm going to have to save that one for next week. I'm going to have to find it and explain what each part of that journey that he described meant. There is definitely an explanation for it. I just can't remember where I read that immediately. I can't immediately find it. So there you go. Mine was last week. Says, who was that? Janet. Yes, sing. Okay, Patter O'Chulla Og. This is just for you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Patter and Janet. Happy birthday to you. My conducting skills coming into play there. That's really annoying me now as to where that. See, the thing is that tochmarc Emer is generally included in the toin, but it is not a central part of the toin, as it were. Because remember, this is a four tale to the toin. Cúchulainn is wooing Emer and then goes off to get trained by Scáthach. Where is it in Squire? Sure, we'll quickly check. Sure, there's no harm. No. Anyway, that's a job for me to find out between now and next week. When Kelly Nichiali wants to know, when is Wooing Part 2? Next Monday. I'm going to be busy for the next couple of days. I'm still working, of course, but I also need to get Ireland signed off so that the printers can start rolling and it can start printing. The Wooing of Emer, or in Drogheda, chatting up your wan. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Some of the Wooing of Emer is set in this area, actually, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to find that lovely description of the journey, because some of it passes through this area. But I will find it. I'll find it for next week, and that's how we can introduce the thing next week before we go on to part 2. Monday, 6 days. In the meantime, as usual, it's possible I might do an impromptu live stream from somewhere out in the landscape, out at the monuments, possibly, hopefully, fingers crossed. In the meantime, thank you all for joining us tonight. A great pleasure to have you along, as always. Between now and next time, do your best to stay safe and try and comply with the instructions or regulations wherever you are, in terms of trying to keep the infection rates and the death rates particularly down. Our case rates are going up quite considerably. We've close on 200 cases today. Now, no deaths at the moment, but if it keeps going the way it is, I think it's inevitable that we will see a spike again in the number of people dying. So this is an ongoing situation, and we have to do what we can to help each other. Wash our hands, use hand sanitizer, physical distancing when you're outside. 2 meters is the recommended, and a face mask, of course, if you're anywhere where there's going to be other people. You mightn't agree with it, but it will keep you safe and it will keep them safe. If everybody wore masks, we would actually suppress this thing completely, but some people don't want to wear masks. In the meantime, thanks for joining us. A very good night to you. Don't forget to get your order in for Island of the Setting Sun 2020 on mythicalireland.com. And we'll be back next week on Monday, the usual time, I hope, providing that there's nothing else. Sometimes I have to postpone because there are other things on, but I think Monday should be okay. Thanks for watching. And what is it I like to say? Colo sov, have a sound sleep, Ichawa, good night, and Slán go fóill, which is goodbye for now. See you next time.